Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how the push for Brexit freedoms is going to fatally weaken Brexit itself, I think, in 2023. We've already seen an encouraging shift in public opinion last year, 2022, but this year has even more potential to blow a few holes in the concept. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I was reading an article in The Guardian again this morning about the diverging priorities that Rishi Sunak has to manage this year. I've talked about these myself. The article itself basically is a warning that he faces a major rebellion at some point this year. Because while Sunak is trying to pretend that he cares about the issues the public care about, like the NHS, an influential core of the parliamentary party want these Brexit freedoms that seem to be taking a while. I'll link the article itself for interest, but it's not really what I'm talking about here. What I want to talk about is the Brexit freedoms concept. The two words, of course, have nothing to do with one another, but they come up a lot, Brexit freedoms. A lovely ambiguous term for Brexit campaigners to use in 2016 and beyond. Freedom is such a brilliant word to use in politics. Everyone loves freedom. But what is freedom to one person can be an attack on another. You might have people, for example, that would like the freedom to rob people without consequence. Hey, if they care about their stuff, they'll defend it better, they might say. A ridiculous notion in almost everyone's mind. But change the concept slightly, and it becomes less ridiculous to some people. Freedom of speech. That's often a clarion call for people on the far right to be able to abuse others. The freedom to, for example, slander a person or a group of people. That's a freedom. That's the freedom of speech they want. But you can make up some lies about a person or a group of people, and they can then suffer threats of violence, if not actual violence, from people who believe the lies. So a freedom for one person being a source of victimization and even assault for others. This is what happens when you have freedom without responsibility. But what is a Brexit freedom? To the millions who voted for it, it's very poorly defined. This was deliberate on the part of Brexit campaigners. Well, ponders the average gammon, it means the freedom to make up our own rules. We were doing that. That's what Westminster's for. We've also got local councils, mayors, even devolved parliaments who all make up their own rules. Yeah, but we had to accept other rules that we didn't make as well. Oh, did we? Can you name one? Oh, we were allowed bendy bananas. Oh, so when were bananas not bendy then? Oh, they were quite bendy, weren't they? Oh, they had an issue with prawn cocktail crisps. When could we not get prawn cocktail crisps? Oh yeah, we still could get prawn cocktail crisps. Can you think of any rules that were imposed on us that we didn't like? At which point you are met with silence. They'll come up with ones that they genuinely think were imposed EU rules. Like another favourite, if we move on from the food cupboard, immigration benefits. I remember talking to Brexit supporters years ago, oh, people come over here just for the benefits, you should be able to do this. And you would then pose them, okay, so you've got this problem, okay, fine. And you would propose them a hypothetical solution to it. Would you be happy if this was the EU rule? They go, oh, yeah. And then you would say, that is actually the EU rule. I would point out that our immigration benefit rules were actually very free, but that was a decision of successive UK governments, Labour and Conservative. The other EU countries had the rules that they would be happier with. So what they're basically saying is they weren't unhappy with the EU, they were unhappy with the British government. Anyone, of course, in the EU can move around, freely live and work, but when it comes down to it, most people don't have an issue with that. But our rules when it came to benefits, as I say, were looser than EU rules. And that's the thing. When you ask an ordinary person, what freedom did you hope to gain from Brexit? You can point out they already had it in the EU. When you ask them what freedom they've actually gained, now that Brexit's here, they can't answer you. The more determined will insist, oh, it's just taking time, that's all. We'll be here any minute now. The same people who will argue that the EU is going to collapse in 2 weeks' time and have been doing so for 10 years. Or that they'll say that the government keep messing it up. Yeah, Nigel said the government keep messing it up. If only he was in charge. But those capable of some measure of critical thought will realise whatever they thought Brexit freedoms were, they're not coming. Hence various polls showing increasing regret and decreasing support for Brexit. But there is a group of people who do know what freedoms they want from Brexit. They're very clear on it. There are different types of Brexit supporter with quite a few different motivations behind them. There was no one reason for Brexit. It wasn't always about racism or xenophobia or about weakening the UK government or dividing Europe to prepare for an invasion by Russia. It wasn't all just an ideological opposition to international harmonisation or collaboration. The ERG, the main group of hardcore Brexiteers within the Conservative Party who drove this, they wanted a very specific, very practical form of freedom. They want to deregulate the UK. But their freedom, like so many others that sounds appealing, means removing the freedom of others. For example, let's say you buy something, it doesn't work. Well, you have the right to go back to the manufacturer or the shop that sold it to you and say, can I have a working version, please, or my money back? That is a freedom for consumers. But the company who sold it to you maybe would rather not refund you and just go, look, it's bad luck, most of our stuff works, you were just unlucky, go away. Or you buy another one if you want. And they would rather leave you with the expensive knackered white elephant. The rights to paid annual leave or sick leave, paternity or maternity leave, these are freedoms for workers. But some employers would rather have the freedom to say no. Basically, this group of Tory MPs on the far right of the party feel that things should be a matter of choice. It's no surprise to learn that these same characters think that wearing face masks in public but unventilated spaces should be a matter of choice in a deadly pandemic. Because they fundamentally fail to understand that a face mask is not about the wearer's body, everyone else's. The same applies to workers' rights, consumer rights, health and safety rules, environmental rules, and so on. They're not about the individual, they're about wider society. But these people think that the market should decide. Take the issue of what happens if you buy that faulty product. You put it to these people, and do you know what they say? Oh no, you shouldn't be able to get a refund because the company will make every effort to make the product work. Otherwise, their reputation will suffer. And there's a certain logic behind it. You can go along with it. Only you think to yourself, okay, but there was a time when these consumer rights didn't exist. Did everything just work? Did everything work? When you didn't have the right to a refund? You could ask for one, but you wouldn't get it necessarily. No, consumer rights came about in the first place because companies were not making enough efforts to make sure the goods were working and that the person got what they paid for. They just did whatever maximised their profits. And the same would happen again. But you cannot tell the ERG that, and the reason is because they are and represent those at the very top of the tree. It's the masses, it's ordinary people who benefit most from regulations in a very obvious way. You can say to an ordinary worker, it's quite clear, do you benefit from paid annual leave? Yes. Do you benefit from this? Yes. Do you benefit from that? If you buy something, it doesn't work, the right to demand that it does work or you get your money back, is that a good thing? Yeah, you say that to these people and it's always obviously a very good thing. But these people don't represent ordinary people. They don't see the benefit in regulations themselves. And it's this group of Brexiteers who will fatally win Brexit itself. We've left the EU. We've left the customs union. We've left the single market. British politics is currently knackered. Few are able to actually talk truthfully and frankly about Brexit without suffering electoral losses. The country has voted to impose economic sanctions on itself, and we've got a toxic society, but it's still too ashamed to admit it. So we're still attempting to collude in the fantasy of a workable Brexit. You would think the Brexiteers are terribly pleased. They got more than they campaigned for in 2016 and with little prospect of reversing it in any meaningful way anytime soon. As for reversing it completely, very long time indeed. In fact, most of those behind it will be dead when that happens, natural causes. They should be delighted, but they're not. And that's because this group of Tory MPs didn't really care about the single market as such or the customs union per se. They've got objections to the way the EU works. They would rather it didn't exist, but they also understood that leaving it wouldn't stop it existing. But on a practical level, it's its opposition to their nefarious ways of generating wealth. These Brexiteers want the UK to be completely deregulated, for them to be able to do as they please, make as much money as they like, and not pay any in taxes. And I mean completely deregulated. The bill, the retained EU law bill, which is intended to chop thousands of regulations from our EU days, which I've talked about a bit and will again, that's just the start for them. Don't think that that is their goal and that's it. They won't be happy with that. But it's not like they can even get that start. That's for them the start of Brexit. Brexit doesn't start until that is done. until those regulations are gone. That's what they want. If we abolish all these regulations at the end of this year, as they want, the Conservative Party will be destroyed. The impact will be so devastating, Liz Truss's mini budget will look very tame in comparison. The result would do two things politically. First, it would render the Conservatives even more unelectable. Second, it would highlight the severe damage that Brexit is causing to even more people. Bear in mind, after the mini budget, support for Brexit dropped significantly and regret for Brexit rose significantly. In the wake of that mini budget, it blew a hole in Brexit. This would blow a much bigger hole. This push for what the ERG regard as Brexit freedoms is what is going to mug the concept of Brexit. Something's going to happen this year. Either the ERG are going to win and people are going to see what Brexit reality is in a very undeniable way. You will not be able to deny it when your right to paid leave is being taken away. Or they are not going to win and the promise of Brexit is going to evaporate, because that's what they're pinning all the hopes on. All the people are going, oh, we're just waiting for these Brexit freedoms. That's what they're saying. As soon as we get rid of these EU rules, then we'll be able to take off. The reason we haven't so far is because we haven't got rid of these rules. They're tying everything to that. This is their last great white Brexit hope. And if they don't get it, it's gone. The ERG are making 2023 their battleground for Brexit freedoms because they have to. They've run out of road. For years and years and years, the Tories were kicking the can down the road because they couldn't tie Brexit with reality. But the ERG know they've got little chance in the next election, so the road is running out. Time is running out. They've got this year. That's it. They will fight for this. But it is not in the interests of the public. And it is not even something that the public think is in their interests. And the rest of the Conservative Party needs to appeal to the public. Pursuing policies which are not a public priority, they're fine. They're absolutely fine. You have to do that with some of the better ones. But it's only fine politically as long as the same public is happy enough with what you're doing. If the public are happy that you are delivering on their priorities, they're absolutely cool with you delivering on a few things that are not their priority, right? But this is not the case for the Tory government right now. People are not happy with what they're doing. So they need to focus on important policy areas. But the ERG are not interested in that because they're not interested in the Conservative Party. They don't care if the Conservative Party wins 400 seats at the next election or 50, as long as they get what they want. They have their Brexit. They've engineered a public narrative where it's hard to even talk properly about Brexit, but they still don't have what they want. And now they've got a matter of months to get it. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.